And there's a bunch of reasons we're on this call, but like I said, the whole purpose of the call is for Coach Govs and his legacy and his family and honoring his name. Our first guest, I don't know if he needs an intro. He's generational best linebacker ever to play the game. He played with me for 3 years at Boston College, where I played with him. Let's put it that way. What a great player. What a great person. We really appreciate his time. We're going to try to get him on here any second to talk about Coach Govs and his legacy with him. My dude, what's up, Luke? How we doing?
Hey guys, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for logging in. Love the hat, man.
Yeah, I got to get my BC hat going.
Yeah, obviously you don't need an intro, so super excited you're on this call, man. This means a lot to us and it means a lot to me personally. I know it means a lot to McGovern family, so thank you again.
Absolutely. It's good to be on here. You did a good job putting this together.
So I want to start out, man. Obviously, you don't really need an intro. One of the best linebackers ever to play. And honestly, I know you're super humble. That's something I admire about you, which a lot of people don't have in this world. But let's start off, because I want to get into it. I know your time's important. What did Coach Govs mean to you? We'll start there.
Well, so, you get to college, and that's the first time that you're ever playing football away from your hometown. When you're in grade school, you play it at home. When you're in high school, you largely play at home. The first time you get to college, you're gone. You're not in high school. You're not in college. Your parents aren't there. You're looking around. You're trying to breathe above water as you're learning new playbooks. And the one thing that we always felt with Govs, and especially talking to the older guys when I got there, is everyone talked about how much he cared for the guys. And he had his own way of doing it, especially as a young guy. But you always knew that he cared about you as a person. And as you kind of go through your career, you start to realize, like, all right, this guy cares about us. He loves us. He treats us, Mackenzie already talked about it. He treated us like we were his boys. So anything from being tough on us to putting his arm around us to having us in his meeting or in his office after, tough time at school. He gave great advice. He was cut and dried to the point. But I think there was 3 things that I think that always stood out to me among other things. I think his family, number one, was super important to him. I think the game of football is super important to him, and he loved all of us as players. And I think you saw that when the girls would come around and when Colleen would come around, you saw an example of what things are supposed to look like. This guy's worked hard all day. He's been yelling and screaming at us because we can't do things right. But then the girls come up and everybody knows that smile that he's got. And that, to me, when you're a young kid, you're 18 years old, you're working your butt off at training camp, you're tired, and you see him the same way. He's tired. He's been working his butt off. He's probably staying up later than we are. When his family comes to the stadium and they come on the field and they're in the office, it's like he's like, man, I love my family. I'm here for them. They need to see me in a good mood. And that was the thing that I think we all saw as players, was how important Gov's family was to him, and he would do anything to make sure that they were happy. And it was just, I can talk about a million football things and all that stuff, but to me, that's the boring stuff. Who he was as a person, how he loved the guys, how he treated his wife and his girls, to me was what was most important.
Yeah, so well said, man. And honestly, we all saw that after Thursday practice, the girls giving cookies to us, and they were little, now they're big. But what an example. As a coach, you have such a powerful example to set, because the players are always watching, right? Like, we watch that stuff, even though he didn't think we were watching, right? And such a great point that the first example he set was being a great dad and being a great father, and that trickled into everything else. So appreciate your testament to that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
let's get into some football IQ stuff, some preparation work. That's why people are on the call listening to the film study. And I know you did a lot of film study stuff already on separate podcasts and things, but just holistically, like from 30,000 feet, like, what do great linebackers see that others don't?
Oh man, I think the preparation side of the game is what separates people. And what I mean by that is you always have to look for your edge, right? You're gonna be bigger, faster, stronger, you're gonna be in better shape, you're gonna be well rested, you're gonna be healthy. but you got to look for these pre-snap, pre-game advantages that you can find. A lot of that comes from preparation. And I think what you need to look for is top concepts. What does this team like to do? What are their top concepts? What are their top concepts out of 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 21 personnel? Out of those personnel groupings, what do they look like formation wise? And then, you know, the one thing that I always try to look at too is, do teams run plays out of formations, or are they a personnel team? So, I mean, I didn't know what that meant until I, you know, started being around some older guys. Was a formation-based team is going to run the same formation out of 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 13, 21, 12, all that stuff. And they're looking for the defensive matchup in the sense of nickel base, you know, big nickel, stuff like that. Or are they a, you know, personnel grouping team where they're going to run certain plays out of certain personnel grouping? So what I would always try to find out was, what does this team want to do? Are they formation-based, personnel-based? And then from there, how do they fit? How does what they do fit within our defense? Like, hey, so if we're going to play cover 3 and they're running 11 personnel and it's 2x2 slot and the tight ends to the left, the slots to the right, what are the top run concepts out of this look? All right, boom, these are the top run concepts. All right, boom, same thing. Here's the top pass concepts. And then here's my top play action pass concepts. And then, all right, so say that's first and second down. What does my first and second down game plan look like when applied to that? So what are we going to be on Saturday or Sunday or Friday, you know, for high school stuff? If we're going to play this team and they're going to line up in 11 personnel, what is our call going to be? And then I would splice that in. So when I would watch tape, it'd be like, all right, 2x2, 11 personnel, tight ends to the left, slots to the right. We're playing cover 3. We're going to play an over front. My exposed gaps for the second level guys are the B gap to the bubble, the A gap, and either the C gap or the D gap, depending on where that end's going to play. All right, so now if they run, you know, front side 1 back power, everybody knows how that's blocked. So the moment I get a backside guard pull, I know exactly where I'm going. So my goal pre-snap and pre-game was to understand, out of all these looks that they're going to run and out of all these formations, how do we match up on our defense? And then who's going to come block me in the run game specifically? Because everybody knows in the run game, it's one guy is really assigned to block you, right? So if you understand where he's coming from, his angle to you, and his relation to the football, now things really, really slow down. And then after that, it's like, how fast can I process? So boom, I can tell you everything. I know everything. I know our defense like the back of my hand. Boom. But then when that backside guard pulls, how quickly can I tell myself, boom, I was a B gap player. Now he pulls. Now I'm the A gap run through player off the double team. Like, that's where I started trying to get to as I got older playing football, was who's going to block me and how do I need to beat him to get to the football?
Yeah, no, that was profound, man. That was awesome. I think big piece of, you know, your story, your success is, and a lot of linebackers, right? Like, know the story before it's written. Like, take the clues, right? Try and know the story before it's written. I think the part that separates you to the 1%, right? And we all strive. Every backer, every coach tries to get his players to that 1%, is the trigger response.
Go.
You could tell, hey, if that guy pulls, we're gonna do this, or if it's duo, the will's gonna, you know, fit first, you know, and blah blah blah. But your trigger response was, you know, at that 1%, you know, not only
Yeah.
in college but in the NFL. So, you know, just an incredible, you know, kind of dialect of kind of how you break down things. We appreciate that, but really, you know, that's what made you special, right? And you know that, you credit that a lot. The communication aspect, just moving to communication and leadership. You were a freshman at Boston College, plugged in as a starter. You were a rookie, plugged in as a starter in the NFL. You have a huddle, you're the Mike linebacker. You have a huddle of older guys. How do you lead as a young player? For the coaches on the call, we fear playing freshmen sometimes, right? For the players on the call, they're wondering how you led that group, you know, in different ways, whether it was in college or the pros. Talk to me how you take control of the huddle.
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of it was, you know, I get thrown in both in college and in the NFL. You know, we had injuries and stuff, and I just got thrown in there. But I felt like a lot of it was, all right, if I'm an older guy putting myself in their shoes, what do I want from a young guy? And I thought it was pretty straightforward. Just work really hard. Like, you don't always have to do the right thing, right? You don't need to be in the right spot. You don't need to do the right thing. But if everybody knows who plays hard and who doesn't, who runs to the football, who's violent, who wants to put their face on people, like, that's a decision that you make. So like your effort, your toughness, your violence to the football, your willingness to chase a guy down and put your face on him, like, to me, that's a non-negotiable, and everybody recognizes and appreciates that. So I think that's number one. I think number two, do you make plays? Like, guys, I mean, it really just straight up comes down to that. Guys respect people that work hard and make plays. And then a lot of it too is, can they trust you, right? So I think, and then the fourth one, I think, is if you're just be a good dude, and like, especially as a young guy, like, just be seen. You don't need to be heard. Be seen, don't be heard. Because if you do those four things, if you're tough, if you make plays, if you're reliable and dependable, and you just keep your mouth shut and go play, they kind of like don't have a choice but to show respect for you, you know? And you just be honest and you be a good dude, and you don't overstep your boundaries. And when you need to talk to a guy, you try to figure out how to talk to him. And I learned a lot from a guy named Thomas Davis in Carolina. He was an older veteran linebacker when I first got to Carolina, and his ability to connect with the guys in the team, I think, really allowed him to form great relationships and get stuff from guys that other people couldn't, in the sense of motivation and understanding why guys are going through things. And I always watched him and said, all right, what does he do really well and why does he do it? So, you know, I kind of talked about it, form a great relationship with the guys, be close to them, understand what makes them tick, because inevitably, you know, you're going to have a day with a certain guy, you know, Dan, you show up every day and you give, and you're an A+ every day. And then one day out of 100, you're a C-. Instead of just dog cussing a guy and getting on him and being pissed, if you've got a good relationship that you formed with this guy, then you can be, hey, Dan, like, what's up? Like, you all right? And you'll probably be like, if you trust me and you got a good relationship and you think I'm a good dude, you're going to probably say, you know what? I'm not doing very well. And this is why. So I think as a young guy, you got to come in and get to know the older guys and work really hard, make plays, be dependable, and be seen and not heard. And I think that's kind of the power of it, is just doing things the right way all the time. And the effort piece is just kind of non-negotiable.
Yeah, that was awesome. That's so true too, and exactly what you did. You know what I mean? It was like, we called you Clark Kent because we never, you know, on the field you're Superman, and then, you know, in the locker room you're very unassuming, and you know, it was a huge testament to who you were as a person. You were in the 1% of linebackers, and you had to get to the 1% through hard work, through prep, through all this stuff. What, in your opinion, is harder, getting to the 1% of all linebackers in the country, or staying in the 1%?
I thought getting there was harder, because once you get there, you don't want to not have it.
Right. It's like addiction.
Right. So, you know, you're playing, you know, it's, you go from high school and you got to grind through high school, and you got to get in college and you got to grind in college. And then you get in the NFL and, like, you know, you got to grind to get that starting spot. And then you get that starting spot for a year and you're like, I'm not playing. Like, I'm not doing that. So to me, it's hard to stay the guy, like the starter, but it's easier because you know what the other option is, and like, I don't want to do that. I didn't want to do that. You know what I mean? So I think it's harder to get to that point, because you got to have a lot of stuff that falls your way, right? You got to stay healthy. You got to be in a good system. You got to, you know, have good guys in front of you. A lot of stuff's got to go your way, but once you get to that level, you know what it feels like. And like, I'm not giving that up, and no one, I don't, like, gonna let anybody take it from me, kind of thing. That's kind of how I felt about it, but I loved everything about it. I never felt like it was like a job.
Is that what fueled you? Like once you got it, not letting it go, or what fueled Luke Kuechly, like, to be great?
Yeah, I just loved playing football. And I think that's ultimately what it came down to. I liked being on the field. I liked playing defense. I liked playing Mike linebacker. I liked running to the football. And to me, it was pretty straightforward. Like, I want to be I want to be good at it and I want to have fun doing it and I want to help my team win. But selfishly, I just liked playing football. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was a ton of fun, and the guys I got to do it with were sweet. So in my mind, I was like, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I can just keep doing something that I really like doing.
Yeah, no, and you did that for sure. Tackling. We're going to move to
Mm-hmm.
the coaches and the players. You know, you're known for being violent, but also very clean, you know, as a tackler, right? Like you smoke people, right? You run through people, but you're also very clean. At times, you're almost unblockable in the box. You're very slippery in the box, you know, watching your film, watching for years. What's your philosophy on tackling to the coaches? How do you approach it in terms of tackling? And then, you know, second to that, let's talk some block destruction too.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's different, we always talked about different types of tackles, right? Like a profile tackle is if, you talked about duo, right? If it's an open A gap and a guy's run into the A gap, it's mano a mano. It's like you just got to stick him, right? Um, but I think the real game of it is like in open space, right? I think that's where the hardest tackles are created, or in open space. So I think a lot of it comes down to number one, angles to the football. Angles of the football are the number one, I think, designator in successful tackles in the open field and not, right? And we always talked about, the back of their butt cheek, right? If you go to the hip, some of these, like that middle hip bone, I think some of these guys are too good and they can still cut back across your face. But if you go on that back side of that butt cheek, that to me is a good aim point, because you can always flatten out and chase, right? If you ever get on top of somebody and they cut across your face, you're just not going to bring them down. But if you get too tight on that angle and you can flatten down and chase them, I think that was the biggest thing in open space. And my game plan, always tackling, I just need to get on them. Like if I can get my hands on them, I'm in good shape. And then it was run your, like all this stupid stuff that we all talk about. Get on them, run your feet, put your face on them. Like it's the easiest thing ever. And so for me, when I was going to tackle guys in space, my biggest goal with them was to get on them. Get on them. I'm not trying to kill guys. I'm not diving at ankles. There's nothing to grab down there. I want to tackle these guys, especially in open space, high. If I'm having an angle, like if I'm playing them on an angle, I'm tackling them high. There's so much to grab up around the shoulder pads, in the cuff, behind him. If you slip and fall down, you can grab belts, waistbands, stuff like that. Um, I think diving at guys and trying to cut guys down, even getting your head across, I think you're asking to get hurt. I think what I always thought about was I'm gonna do everything I can to try to put my face on this guy. Because if you can put your face and you can put your chest, like if the more surface area you can put on a guy, I felt like the better off I was. If I tried to just go and hit a guy with the top of my shoulder pad, there's not enough surface area to make that guy feel uncomfortable.
Right.
So in open space, that was always my game plan, was take a good angle at the back of his butt cheek. I want to get on him and grab hold, and I'm running my feet and I'm trying to, if I get squared up on a guy like this, I'm trying to put my whole chest and body on him and rip through him. Like you want to hit these guys. If you're like a taller guy and you can hit the guy on the rise like that, he loses all power,
Yeah.
because you get him high, you get him out of his hips, you get him out of his ankles, out of his knees. There's nothing he can do about it. So I think violent arms, violent hands, and run your feet. To me, it's pretty tackling to me is a little bit of an art, but also just like run fast, great angles, violent arms, violent hands. And when you grab onto something, you can't let go, and run your feet.
Yeah. And I think the momentum, right? Momentum equals violence, famously coined
Yeah.
by
And
Sellers.
your angle allows you to run through guys, right? Trust your angle and run through them
Yeah. That's a big piece right there is
and
understanding.
land on them.
Like even hitting anyone from the surf, like I never met a man I can't push a shoulder back. Like you're losing balance when you hit them higher and wouldn't have the ankle. So I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Block destruction wise, was it all the slipperiness in the box, the block avoidance versus striking, was it all based off phase of the ball? How far
Yes.
from the ball?
Mhm.
Talk to the audience about phase. Just
Yeah, so we talked a lot about we were an old school cover three, um, one man, one gap. You got to play on your side of the gap. So I'm gonna, for example, like say it's 2 by 2, the tight end's to the left, it's slot, it's 11 personnel. So tight end to the left, Z receiver, and then to the right is a slot and X, and then we're playing an over front. So I'm playing that B gap bubble, right? Everybody knows what that looks like. And the main run in NFL is like zone, just wide zone bubble run, right? McVay, Shanahan, LaFleur, all those guys. The guy that's going to block you on that 99% of the time is that front side guard. So you control that B gap, and the number one thing in wide zone is to make that ball cut vertical. You don't want it to continue to push. You need to set firm edges and make that ball push vertical and keep it inside. So what I'm getting at is here's an example of that guy's going to zone step to you and you got to stuff him in the hole. And to me, that's a non-negotiable. You got to stuff him in the hole. And what we always talked about was you got to play a half man on these guys. Like these guys are too big, too strong. If you take them down the middle, they're just going to cover you up. So what I always thought about was I need to stick him and then think about if you're the offensive lineman and I'm trying to control this outside gap, stick and punch, and then his outside arm is his strong arm. You got to beat that outside arm. Then you can control the gap. If he's able to hook you with that play side B gap arm, you're screwed. So I always thought about if I'm going to go attack that guy, the best thing that we have as backers is we're quicker, we're faster. We always got to use that to our advantage, right? Speed him up, slow him down, but at the end of the day, I got to stick him, I got to punch him, I got to sit him in that gap, and I got to control that outside arm so I can go make the play. So you're in phase with the ball on that play. You need that ball to cut vertical. So like a situation like that, I got to punch him, I got to stick him, I got to sit him down in that B gap. So I think that's when you're in phase. And then like Dan was saying, say it's a toss play. I think a lot of times you got to let these guys go play football. Everybody says never slip underneath, right? If you slip underneath, you better make the play. But now if you go look and you talk to offensive line coaches, only thing they ever talk about is take an aggressive angle to beat them to the point, like the point of attack. And some of these guys, they take such a drastic angle to the ball. And if you beat them over the top, you're just not playing smart football. So we were always saying that, hey, if that ball is out of phase from that lead blocker, go make a football play. We're not going to tell them to go underneath, but you say go make a football play, it allows the coaches to kind of have a little bit of
Where is it?
yeah, they got a little bit of liability coverage there, but I think beating blocks is all about where's the ball in phase, and then the other thing too is what are we better at? We're faster, we're more athletic, we're quicker. What are we not good at? We're not bigger, we're not stronger, we're probably not more powerful. So my thought process was always give them something different each time. One time I'm going to run past you. The next time you're going to be high running at me, I'm going to punch you in the chest. Then the next time you think I'm going to run at you and punch you in the chest, boom, now I slip you. So I always felt like that was kind of a good recipe of there's certain scenarios where you got to go stick a guy in a hole. That's like a non-negotiable, like a lead play in the B gap and you're the wheel back and you got to punch that guy and turn that ball back. Like that's kind of non-negotiable. But there's a lot of opportunities, especially as an inside backer, to just kind of ebb and flow and be around the football and switch it up on these offensive linemen. Don't make it the same thing every time because they get uncomfortable just like we do as backers.
No, that was awesome, man. And I think, yeah, it's the same thing. Like, I think the most powerful piece of that in terms of being a player, players are listening, is give them something different every time, right?
Yeah, make them think.
That's always making them miss and creating seams, right? But also be able to whoop their ass if you have to. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
you got to be able to have both, right? And I think for players listening, that's a perfect response: is have a bag, right? Have a bag of tricks where you're really comfortable with your moves. You understand phase and in a good relationship, but understand there's times you got to strike a dude, right? And if it comes down to it, you got to win.
Well,
So
yeah. One more thing to add on that is as a backer and as a defender, really, especially a second lever defender, the one thing that you know that he doesn't know as an offensive lineman he doesn't know where the ball is. He knows where the ball is supposed to be, right? He knows the path of the ball carrier on wide zone. He's running at the outside leg of the tackle and then trying to punch it vertical, right? He knows that in his mind. They practice that. But what he never knows, once that ball gets snapped, he doesn't know where the ball is. So you got to use that to your advantage. So I'll let you guys kind of interpret that how you want as players, but don't be afraid to stretch that guy, that lineman wide, and then stick it inside because you know that's where the ball is going to hit. That's the one thing that I always thought about too was he doesn't know where the ball is, you do. So
Setup of it is something that, we train our guys. It's like, tell them the story that you want them to tell them.
yeah,
Tell them the story that you're going outside, and then the whole time you're going in, right?
yeah,
And that's making a miss instead of running into linemen. And anytime you strike someone and do the high school, then you're trying to bench press them off you, like they're holding the shit out of you. Like it's
yeah,
all, the linemen are, really good, especially with, at the higher level you keep climbing. So being able to be slippery, understanding phase, I think that's that last point you made was, I don't think there's any position where, outside of offensive line, that you identify what's hard for them holistically and then understand it from your level as a second level defender and have patience enough to understand where the ball is. I think that's a huge point. Going into mindset and process, and I know we'll wrap it up here soon, but mindset and process. So going back to you as a young player, 17-year-old, I'm a player, I'm a coach, I'm coaching a young player. What habit would you tell yourself to do every day? If you can go back, if there was a habit, if there was a routine, maybe one thing, maybe two things, what would that be?
I think the biggest thing is you got to be available to play football. You can be the best football player ever, but if you are not able to practice and you can't play, it doesn't matter. And you know, coaches and front offices and no matter what level you play at, if they can't rely on you to be healthy, then they can't rely on you. And that goes back to my point I made initially about being a young guy. They need to be able to rely on you and they need to be able to rely on you to be available to play football. So that takes into account everything: how you eat, how you sleep, how do you hydrate, how do you take care of yourself in the off season, how seriously do you take um your lifting and your training and your flexibility and mobility. That was one thing that I feel like I did a pretty good job of it, but there's areas I could have really improved with that. And I learned it when I got into the NFL, watching some of these older guys that have been playing for 12, 14 years. Take care of your body. That's the number one thing in football is if you can't play, doesn't matter. So get a routine. I think that's the big thing too, is finding routine in your week to make stuff. You don't have to make decisions. Hey, it's Monday and this is what I do every Monday. So then when Monday rolls around, you don't have to even think about it. This is what I do on Monday and you go and do it. And then this is what I do on Tuesday and you go and do it. And then the same thing for the rest of the week. If you can create a schedule in a routine that you can stick to that benefits you and allows you to be available to play football, the earlier you can establish that and find what works for you, the more beneficial it's going to be.
No, that's a great answer. And I think the elite mindset is what makes people in that 1%. It's so hard to, pick the apple over the apple pie at, midnight, right? But it's those decisions, those choices, those behaviors that really matter. And then I think you flirted the line a little bit, kind of a fun question, the obsession, versus discipline piece, right? Like you were so obsessed with being great and routine and habit. Um, were there times you soaked it in? Were there times you're playing the Super Bowl, playing in big games where you looked around and saw mom and dad? And were there some times, or were you so laser focused?
I wish I would have enjoyed it more. I
Right.
think it's really kind of what it came down to. And I think my last year, I kind of towards the end of the year, I was like, this might be it. And we played we played at Lambeau at night in mid-December. It was a 4 o'clock game, so you come out after halftime, and it was snowing, and it was like 20 degrees, snowing at night under the lights at Lambeau Field in December. And you're like, this is sick. But early in my career, it was like, how do we win? And I didn't get away from that as I went, and got older, but I think I kind of knew towards the end of my last year that I was going to be done. And I was like, dang, this is pretty sweet.
Yeah, no, that obviously I was watching you, rooting for you, things like that. But watching you even from knowing you and then from afar, you see that obsession and the habits and the routines that you had, even from playing in college, things like that. It was different. It was different into a level of respect and admiration. And the number one thing coaches and players can take from me knowing you is just the humility, the humbleness, and to keep it in this type of generation is quite remarkable. I'll leave you with the last thing, and then I'm jumping to a next speaker. I know your time's super busy, but there wasn't a lot of bad plays. Maybe you think differently, but there wasn't a lot of bad plays. There wasn't a lot of true bad games. But when you feel like you're not playing up to your standard, how do you get yourself back as a coach? How do you get maybe your star player? He's having a bad drive. He's having a bad game. As a player, maybe you're having a bad drive, bad game. Was there a thing, a phrase? Was there something that you said to yourself when you were struggling?
Yeah, so I had a really good example of this. My second year in the NFL, we were playing the St. Louis Rams. I finished the game with like 3 tackles, and I played awful. And I was pressing, trying to make plays. I was uncomfortable. I couldn't get in the flow of the game, and I was getting mad. And our coach Sean McDermott came up to me after the game on Monday. So we were, watching tape, and he's like, "Hey, what happened yesterday?" And I was like, "Hey, I didn't make enough tackles." He's like, "That's the wrong answer." And I was like, I don't know. He said, "You weren't doing your job." And I was like, "Yeah, you know what? Like, that's a really good point." And kind of what I'm getting at is, at the end of the day, when you're having a bad game, all you got to do is do your job. That's all. In football in general, doing your job is the most important thing, because when you do your job, everyone else can do theirs. And when you do your job, the team plays better. And when you do your job, the defense, you're 1/11th of the defense. And then ultimately, when you're doing your job, your plays will come. And I think after that game, I was like, you know what? Like, I wasn't doing my job. I was pressing to make plays. I was pissed off. I wasn't doing my job, and it resulted in other people not being able to do their job. If I'm a hammer player, I'm an outside force player, and I slip inside and try to make a tackle, now we got 2 guys in the same gap. The ball bounces outside, and I look like a moron. And my other linebacker, Thomas, looks like a moron because he looks like he's doing the wrong thing. But it's my fault because Thomas's angle to the football is fantastic. If I hammer that guy and he puts his foot in the ground, he's going to put his helmet on his chin. Like, it's one of those things where you're having a bad game, you're not playing well. All right, how can we recenter? How can we make it easier for you to do your job? And I think that's what I learned after that game was, when you're having a bad game, in your opinion, only thing that matters is do your job. If you do your job, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I feel like great players, big games, big moments, they want to press. And as a coach, it's hard when you're teaching, when you're trying to tell them, just do your thing, just do your. So
Mhm.
I'm so happy you said that, because a lot of coaches feel that. At least I feel that. Coaching the linebackers, and you want to have these star players that want these great moments, but they'll come to you. And
Oh
sometimes it's
yeah.
frustrating too. Like, you're at drive 3 and you've never tackled anyone yet, but you're doing your job every play.
Yeah.
That,
Thomas was the king of that. I mean, we'd be sitting on the bench in the game, and it'd be third quarter, and T's got 2 tackles.
right.
You know what he never did? Never complained. He would just say, there's no work out there. Said, there's not a lot out there for you. But he just unselfish, do it, and just did his job. So
No, that was awesome, and honestly, it's that was longer than I even expected. So, to be honest, Luke, I can't appreciate you enough, man. I know you're super busy. You got a lot of things going on, life after football. I'm so proud of you, man. I'm so excited that we have a relationship, and I know Coach McGovern's smiling down, man. He's got got two Eagles on the call, and I know his family's super excited that you made the time. The BC Brotherhood's alive tonight, so I really appreciate you joining. Any last words for the coaches or players?
No, man, football's a great sport, and I'm glad you guys are all on here. It's big impact on obviously all of our lives, and Gov's had a huge impact on my life, and obviously Dan's and a lot of other people too. So I got a million Gov stories. We can save those for another time.
For another time. I appreciate you, Luke. Thanks for
All right,
joining.
guys. Yep, thanks.